What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about 5 rules of route running that all wide receivers need to follow. So rule number 1 is that your body cannot leave before the cut. So this is a clip here from Jonathan Mechie tearing his ACL pretty much on a clip simply because his body tried to get out of the break before his foot got down. So let's talk about this, right? So whenever you cut, you guys, like let's say, for example, you're running a curl coming back to the ball, you're running a comeback, maybe you're running a dig. If you have to drop your hips and breakdown, or even routes where you have to cut off of just like one foot, like a simple post route or like a corner route, your body cannot try to get back to the ball. Your eyes cannot try to get back to the ball before your foot actually gets down or your feet actually get down. When you guys drop your hips, you got to think that your feet drive you back to the ball. And at the same time, that's when your head snaps around and that's when your hips start to get around. So not only is this going to help you with speed in and out of your cuts, it helps you prevent a knee injury, because whenever your feet get outside of your frame, aka outside of your shoulders, that's what puts an immense amount of pressure on your knees, on your ankles, etc. Right? So when Mechie goes into this break here, you see how his head and his body is starting to turn before this foot ultimately gets down. So when that foot gets down, you see how far it is outside of his frame. His shin is starting to cave down, his ankle's starting to cave down, and his knee is caving towards the grass, and that's ultimately what leads to the knee injury, right? So a lot of guys will do this on a more simple cut where maybe they're not even coming back to the ball. They'll be running a post, and let's say they got to cut off of their left foot, quarterback's over here, and right before they break on the post, their head and their shoulders will start to look, and that foot cuts, but it's outside their frame. So they could slip, they're not able to push off of the cut, and it puts a lot of pressure. So guys, you have to understand that your feet are what drive you out in this break to be able to prevent this injury, and you obviously can't think about that in this situation right here. This is why it's so important to be very, very detailed when you're doing drill work. Like let's say you're doing just a simple cone drill where you have 3 cones and you cut, you break down, you cut again, then you cut at the last cone. You have to be thinking about these little details while you are training so it becomes an actual habit in a live game scenario, right? So what he should have focused on, or I guess you could say what he should have done in this case, not necessarily focus on because you can't think about it, is letting his foot get down right here inside of his frame and then pushing out, then snapping his head around, then getting his hips out of the break to prevent the injury, but also to have a faster cut. So that's rule number 1, you guys. You have to let your feet be the thing that drives you out of the break. Now, fellas, before we get into these next 4 rules here, if you are a wide receiver or a quarterback watching this and you would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches, check out that very first link in the description below, where you're going to be traveling out to 15 different cities across the entire U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So again, guys, go to that very first link in the description below. That is where you can get all the information and sign up. Our next camp is going to be in San Francisco. Then we'll be heading out to Orlando, Florida, then Phoenix, Arizona. And you see, in San Francisco, we only have 5 spots remaining, then 10 spots in Orlando and 12 spots left in Phoenix, Arizona. So those 3 camps will sell out probably within this next week, you guys. And the rest of these camps will sell out as well. The reason why our camps sell out is simply because we limit spots so we can work with each athlete individually. Our camps are not like a lot of other camps where just get as many people out there, go as fast as you can. If you screw up on a drill, screw up on a route, a throw, whatever, we're going to take the time to coach you up, tell you what you did wrong, and we can't do that if we have a million people out there. So guys, take advantage of the fact that we still have open spots, because we will have to turn people away here very, very soon. Then after that, we'll be heading out to Columbia, South Carolina, Seattle, Washington, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Nashville, Tennessee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Denver, Colorado, Columbus, Ohio, Boston, Massachusetts, Salt Lake City, Utah, and finishing it off in Los Angeles, California. So guys, want some more information? Very first link in that description below. We'd love to have you there. Let's get back to this video. Now, fellas, rule number 2 of route running is you need to have a plan off the line of scrimmage with your hands, just like how you have a plan with your feet with the release that you are choosing. However, you got to keep this plan with your hands very, very simple, and it needs to be based on the release that you are ultimately trying to take. So what he's trying to do here is he's running a fade route. Obviously, it looks like this DB is going to be physical. He's got that slight lean forward. He's probably going to shoot hands. So we need to be prepared for that, right? So whatever release you decide to do with your feet is totally fine. There's a million different ways you could do this. You could do a split release where your front foot goes out, your back foot goes up, both feet hit the ground at the same time. You could do just like a simple jab with your inside foot. You could do a crossover where you go left, then you go right. But when it comes to your hands, you got to think you are trying to beat the DB's arm to the side that you are releasing, because that is the arm that will prevent the release that you are trying to take. So let's say, for example, Dunze's running a fade route right here. So I'm going to play this full speed and then we'll break it down. So he's running a fade route. So his concern is the outside arm of this DB, because that's the only arm that can prevent the outside inside release. So what do I mean by that? I mean that like when he does this release, let's say he jams with both hands, right? If he gets hands on us with his left hand in this case, but we swat the right hand, we're off the press. The entire goal of a DB when he is playing press coverage in terms of his hand technique and jamming is to disrupt the timing with the quarterback and prevent our release. Make our release slower. Have us get stuck on the line for a second, then go up into my route. And he essentially did his job. Now, the only hand that's going to prevent you from doing that is the outside hand. So as a receiver, my plan, I don't want to overcomplicate the hand technique. I think that's what a lot of people do. They think, okay, I'm going to swat this hand, then I'm going to swat this one, then I'm going to dip my shoulder. Like, no, like just keep it simple. Just focus on, okay, I'm going to take my right hand, I'm going to chop his right hand, and then I'm going to go get up into my release. Feet need to happen first to set up the hands, but then it's just, I'm going to swat his hand, I'm going to dip underneath with my shoulder, like almost like a swim move, and then it's the opposite, right? Let's say Adunze here was trying to run like a post route, right? And this DB's in head-up press coverage, so he could take the inside release on a post route. So his thought process would be, I don't even care about his right hand. All I'm focused on is his left hand. So he does whatever release that he does. And if he doesn't shoot with this left hand, okay, cool. I'm just going to go. If he does shoot with this left hand, I'm thinking my left hand is going to chop his hand down. Maybe your right hand swats and you dip the left arm. Just keep the hand technique simple. And it's based on the release that you are trying to take with your route. So that's the second rule that you have to follow, because we spend a lot of time talking about the feet, you guys, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about the hands, just because I think it's a simple concept. And if you keep things simple with your hands, it's going to be a lot easier to combine the releases with your feet with the hand technique, which is something that I feel a lot of receivers struggle on. Now, rule number 3 that you need to follow as a receiver is keep your route tempo the same and pair your releases together. So we're going to be looking at just a simple slant route here from Jamar Chase. Now, why do I think this is a good example? I think this is a great example because obviously they're in the red zone. They're inside the 5-yard line. They're on the 4-yard line. And what's always a threat when you're in the red zone like this or really up close? It would be just like a back pylon goal line fade, right? So how a lot of receivers will run that, especially in this scenario where you have a DB who's in catch technique, which essentially means he's 2 yards off, is that they'll kind of like hesitate, close the space of the DB, then they take off and accelerate and go. So you can use that to your advantage as a wide receiver, because that's this DB's like primary goal right now. He's thinking, okay, we're in the red zone. If it's a pass play, I do not want to get beat on that like head tap fade route, right? So what does Jamar Chase do? He changes the tempo, then goes. And he does the same type of tempo, then speed change that he would run on a fade, but he does it on a slant. That's how you can be more unpredictable versus press coverage, you guys, is by pairing the releases that you run together in terms of tempo, right? So many guys will do the opposite, right? Like they'll do like maybe a little hesitation, run a slant. Okay, DB's thinking that. You do a little hesitation, then go run a fade. He doesn't know what you are doing. And if your route tempo is the same every single time, he's always going to be a step behind us. He's always going to be playing that guessing game. Because you got to understand how hard playing DB is. It's probably one of the hardest physical positions on the field because they're playing backwards and they do not know what we are doing if we don't give them like a tell, if that makes sense. Because like whenever you run your slant, if you do like a fast release, and then when you run a fade, you do a hesitation release, a DB is going to be able to pick up on that. At least a smart DB who studies film and who could pick up on your tendencies throughout a game. Like let's say every time Jamar Chase does a fade route, he does this skip. But every time that he does a slant route, he does like a faster pace release and goes. That's not making your releases look the same, and that's not pairing your releases together. Your tempo, the steps, the angle that you take, all have to look kind of similar, right? So let's play this thing again full speed. Great example of Jamar Chase using that hesitation into a slant, while he could use the same type of hesitation into a fade to keep that DB guessing. Now, rule number 4, you guys, as a wide receiver, you have to be able to react versus press coverage, man coverage, whatever the case may be. So what do I mean by reaction? I mean changing up the plan that you had like predetermined before the ball is snapped. So as a receiver, like we post a lot of videos on our channel like about like IQ quizzes, if you will. We posted one last Monday where I would give a pre-snap look and then I'd ask you guys, okay, how would you run this route versus this look? Because that's essentially what you want to do as a receiver. You break the huddle, or you get a signal in from the sideline. You walk up to the line, you identify what coverage the DB is in, and you look for 2 things. You look for how far he is from you, and then his leverage. Is he head up? Is he inside? Is he outside? Is he right up on the line, 2 yards off, 5 yards off, like this example? Where is he playing? Okay, he's head up, maybe 3 to 4 yards away. This is how I'm going to run my route. Now, I would be stupid to tell you guys that like that's all you should worry about and just go do that, because sometimes DBs are smart, right? The wide receiver DB, like this is why why, like, like all videos that you see online of like one-on-ones, when the NFL will post like the best one-on-ones from like the last week or whatever the case would be. I'm sure some of you guys have seen those. Like, the reason why those get so many views and so many people are interested is because it's such a chess match, right? It's wide receiver, DB, one-on-one. Who's going to win? DB is disguising what he's doing. Receiver's trying to disguise what he's doing. So that's why it's such an interesting battle. But as a receiver, you can't just commit to one thing and then that's it. You got to be thinking that pre-snap, but you have to be able to react on the fly. And this is a great example of this wide receiver doing this, right? So the ball is snapped, DB jumps outside leverage. Receiver just puts the brakes on, takes the inside release, and then restacks on a fade. Because, like, guys, like, if you're running a fade route, like, you would obviously love an outside release. That's like kind of what you want to do in most senses, right? And now there are plays where it's a mandatory outside release. Some people call that an MOR. And so, like, you kind of have to release to the outside and force it. But if it's not that, and you're running a fade, and let's say your game plan is like to close the space, then go. But when you start closing the space with this DB, he just like overcommits to the outside and really takes away your outside release. If he forces this outside release here, he's going to get rerouted way to the sideline. Take what the DB gives you. Keep it simple. He jumps off his platform. Okay, cool. This is not a predetermined move. This is just, okay, I'm going to put the brakes on and I'm going to take what he gives me with this inside release, then I'm going to work back to stack. It would be the same exact thing, you guys, if you had to run an inside breaking route. Like, let's say this receiver, instead of a fade, is running a post route. So we have head up. Let's say it's 4 to 5 yards away, right? Game plan is going to be close the space, give a move, take the inside release. Let's say we close the space, DB jumps to the inside. Okay, cool. Take the outside release and work to stack him. Or if I can't stack him and he's right on my hip, I throw him by and slip back underneath him. It would be the same type of idea. Now, if you're doing this on a fade, you better restack. Because if you're going to take the inside release and that DB's right on your hip, quarterback ain't throwing you the ball. Okay, so you better restack if it's a fade. This is probably better when it's not a fade route, when it's a post, an out, a corner, etc. Okay, so guys, rule number 4 of route running, you have to make sure that you are able to react. You need a plan off the line, but you have to be able to change up that plan on the fly. That is what makes a good receiver. Now, rule number 5 is you got to know how to attack zone coverage. So there's 2 ways that you can attack zone coverage when you're running inside breaking routes and outside breaking routes. And that would be attacking a DB's inside hip and inside shoulder and an area called the blind spot. So you want to attack the blind spot when you have inside breaking routes. You want to attack the inside shoulder and inside hip when you have outside breaking route. So this is a post route, and then we're going to explain how you guys would run this if you had to run an outside breaking route. So this DB's in zone. Easy way to tell if he's in zone is kind of his stance. If his body is kind of turned towards the quarterback or to the inside, his eyes, they could be on you, but sometimes you'll see his eyes turn to the inside. It's mainly his stance, right? If he was playing off man or man coverage, he'd be a little bit more squared up, where his hips and his shoulders would be facing the wide receiver. But if we see that where he's tilted a little bit to the inside, it tells you it's zone. And what it also tells you that he's probably has help to the inside, whether it's a safety or whether it's like a linebacker dropping back into coverage, whatever the case may be, right? So let's watch what this receiver does. He doesn't just go run his post route, right? That's what a lot of lazy receivers will do. They have zone. Okay, I'm just going to go run the post because it's zone. He's going to stay to the outside anyways. We want separation and we want a bigger window for my quarterback. Because remember, if he's playing zone, he's got help to the inside. You're not going to play zone with no help to the inside, right? Unless it's a busted coverage, right? So if we just take off and go, okay, it's zone, then you go run your post. DB's going to be right on your hip and you're running right to that safety quickly. That's a very small window for the quarterback. So what you'd want to do is you'd want to angle your route to this area called the blind spot. They call it the blind spot because the DB can't see over there. His back is turned because he is in zone coverage. So what he's going to do is, because when he's in zone, he's taught don't give up the deep third or the deep fourth, depending on what coverage it is, whether it's cover 3 or cover 4. So if you start threatening that blind spot like you're trying to run around him, what's he going to do? He's going to widen, and then when you break back underneath him, that's a bigger window for your quarterback because you just created more space from the DB and from the safety. So let's watch what this receiver does. So he comes off, attacks that blind spot, widens the DB, bigger window for the QB. That safety was obviously crashing down, but that makes it a much easier throw, especially if it's a quicker post or a dig or a curl. That's when you can do that, right? So let's talk about if it's an outside breaking route, right? Outside breaking route, I wouldn't want to attack the blind spot because the quarterback needs room to lead you. Like, let's say, for example, he's running like a 15 or 10-yard out route. QB needs room to throw you open, right? Because if you're running right on the sideline and a DB's right on your hip, he ain't going to throw that. If he does, it's a pick 6, right? So what we would do, instead of attacking his blind spot to make him widen and then cut down the stem space of the break, is I would attack his inside shoulder and inside hip. I would sell vertical and I would run hard. And my goal is to get that DB to open up his hips, then I would put the brakes on and cut under him. I'd probably have to drop my hips. But guess what? I have all of this room to accelerate out of the break, and I have all this room for the quarterback to lead me. So guys, we talk a lot about man coverage, press coverage, off man. We don't spend a whole ton of time on zone, but that is how I would run routes versus zone coverage. Think about it in terms of outside breaking routes and inside breaking routes and attacking either the blind spot or the inside hip and shoulder. Some of you might be thinking, how would I run a fade versus this look? That would be a little bit different. What you would want to do is you would want to attack something called his near hip, which is the hip that is pointed towards you. You would close the space and you would give a move called a vertical set, which is essentially a hard fake with your inside foot to try to get him to crash. Then you would go to his blind spot. You wouldn't just run to the blind spot because that's kind of like almost like an outside breaking route. And he would essentially widen with you and squeeze you to the sideline. So you would attack his hip, hard fake inside, then go. You wouldn't essentially just run at his inside hip and inside shoulder the whole time like you would on an out route or a corner route. This is a textbook example of how you guys can run an inside breaking route versus zone coverage and create some more space for yourself.